Today, I think the world is really facing a global crisis, which is simultaneously political, economic, systemic, racial, religious. We have had major international crises historically, but the scope of these international crises gradually got larger and larger. Now the crises are practically all over the place, and the places that are not in crisis at the same time are beginning to show some evidence of probably being in crisis before too long. This is now much more sudden, indignant, angry, revengeful, and it is inclined to use dramatic examples for shock effect, such as the public executions of totally innocent people in a totally brutal fashion. I think we are now in the era of global politics and global risks. I mean, look what we are facing. We're facing at the same time a mess with the Russians, who for some crazy reason are waving atomic weapons at us under Putin, something that hasn't happened since 1945. And we have the Middle East exploding very much like the 30 Years' War, with each side claiming the other side is sinful, not the servant of God, but the enemy of God, and is, on top of it, bitterly resentful of Western domination of the world of Islam and carving it up in different pieces. Fortunately, we weren't part of that, but we have done some things in recent years which seem to indicate that we're falling into that role. And then we have Asia, which at one point was so much more productive than Europe, more interesting architecturally and philosophically, but who went into stupor and was abused and is now emerging as a major player worldwide. Most of the problems that we had to deal with in the 40s, 50s, 60s, up to recent years, were problems that were prolonged and antedated the event, so to speak. It grew into a problem. Now things happen so quickly and so inconsistently that it's a continuous struggle, I think, to be on top of it and to have a sustained sense of direction. Something is happening to our information or our storage of information that we don't quite understand or necessarily know the point of origin. And clearly that indicates that someone is taking advantage of modern technology to learn not only what kind of weapons we have, which is the traditional responsibility of intelligence, but what it is that we're doing and what is it about us that makes the relationship, the given relationship, particularly vulnerable for us. Well, that's a whole new dimension, which we haven't yet thought through, for which we don't have really systematic strategic remedies. It's a new age in that respect. We had such threats, such alarms, actually, when I was in office, and I'm sure my predecessors, or more likely my successors, probably had something like that. But I remember once when we had a scare, if there had been a nuclear exchange, which seemed to be developing, there would have been 80 million dead in one day. That's something totally unimaginable. Now we could have a situation in which not very many people are killed. Perhaps nobody's killed, but nobody knows what is happening. No one's able to do anything. Everyone is stuck. Everything's congested and confused, and there is silence in terms of the most important means of communication. There are more toolboxes for doing nasty things. And of course, states may partake of them, but some organized movements in some cases can partake of them as well. But they're becoming more accessible. What is a non-state actor? Is ISIS a non-state actor? Or is it a particularly brutal equivalent of a state determined to impose not only its ideology, but also its political control on a certain territory and certain people? The concept of a state has a huge spectrum ranging from serious, responsible democracies to non-democratic states, but deeply aware of their own vulnerability as well as of their own power, to much more primitive, more emotional entities, which are quasi-states, but they're states, in the sense that they have authority, they have the capacity to inflict terrible pain on people. I don't know how helpful that is, state, non-state. If they can do things to us that hurt us a lot, to me that's like a state doing it. I think we live in a very vulnerable age, and we have to be certain that we can prevent if we can paralyze if we can destroy if we must.